Hello and welcome to DIY Therapy. As always, we'll start with our disclaimer. This podcast is for educational purposes only. It is not designed to diagnose or treat. When beginning any exercise program, it should be reviewed and discussed with your medical professional prior to beginning. Information on this podcast is not designed to replace medical treatment. My name is Will. With me, as always, is Andy.
What's up?
Not too much. How about yourself?
Living the dream, prepping for the heat wave in the Midwest here. We're going to have a heat index, I think, like up to 111, 112 degrees is what they said.
Something like that.
Yeah. So kids will not be outside, and it's a perfect weekend, too, because my wife is out of town on a continuing education trip, and so I am going to be stuck inside with my two young children, not able to do anything fun. So if you have any suggestions on what to do, we are going to go see Lion King. But
The Circle of Life?
The Circle of Life. Oh, I'm actually pumped for that.
The Circle of Life?
No, Lion King.
Oh.
Yeah.
All of the reviews I've seen are, you're like, it looks amazing.
But it's the exact same story.
It's the exact same story.
Which I know.
And like, there's no emoting from the animals. It's just them.
Oh, yeah, like not a lot of emotion.
Yes. You've seen those T-shirts with Darth Vader where it's like, Darth Vader angry, Darth Vader sad. Darth Vader.
I haven't seen that.
Yeah, it's just Darth Vader's face, right?
But that's now Simba.
And that's literally
Mufasa.
Yeah,
I'm grumpy with you, Simba.
Are you?
I don't know.
You sound vaguely like you're angry, but you don't look like you're.
They've got a flat affect.
They've had strokes. It's
each and every one.
Every one of those animals have had a stroke.
They lack social cues and skills. Clunk.
Yeah, breaking chairs.
I am. So what are we talking about today?
As frozen shoulder / adhesive capsulitis.
Yeah.
Which is just the same thing.
Yes. Always kind of a fun topic, I think, with frozen shoulders.
I wouldn't say it's fun.
Well, it's interesting because I think it's a diagnosis that is thrown out there quite a bit.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I was just thinking about that last night where I was trying to figure, I've seen people that were diagnosed by the doctor as frozen shoulder, but yet it would not be something that I would say is a frozen shoulder.
No, it's a diagnosis that I think is thrown out there quite a bit by medical doctors, probably more so like general practitioners versus like orthopedic doctors. But frozen shoulder really is defined by several different things. Really, basically, it's initially very painful. A lot of times it's idiopathic, meaning that there isn't even a natural injury that occurs, or it could be like a secondary type of injury that occurs where you had tendinopathy, rotator cuff injury.
Explain what tendinopathy is.
It's basically just tendinitis.
Yeah.
Okay. It could be a rotator cuff pathology, though, like a tear or strain, something of that nature that then forces individuals to have limited range of motion, and then they don't work through that range of motion, and then it slowly starts to freeze up. But in general, true adhesive capsulitis, frozen shoulder, is really defined by basically three different phases. One of which is freezing, which is extremely painful, where the shoulder starts to lack range of motion. And then the frozen phase, which is going to be where it just kind of stays and plateaus. Still some pain, but usually not as painful as the freezing portion. And then the thawing phase, where the shoulder range of motion actually ends up getting a little bit better over a period of time.
The primary... This isn't like a pain necessarily, because shoulder pain is not an uncommon thing. This is primarily defined as lack of range of motion.
Yeah, and
you don't lose much strength per se, but it's just your range of motion starts going fast, garbage wise.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I always see is I see a diagnosis of adhesive capsulitis, and then I take them through passive range of motion, meaning that I lift their arm up and they have full range of motion. And it's like, okay, well, this is not adhesive capsulitis. No. This is probably some other pathology. So there's a lot of times it can be, again, misdiagnosed, or there's kind of what we consider like a differential diagnosis, where there could be a true tendinitis type of issue. There could be a bursitis type of issue. There could be a rotator cuff tear or strain. There could be just active guarding that's really more or less
and so
involved.
Guarding is, imagine your shoulders hurt, so you keep your arm closed to you. So it's like you see a dog hopping along with one of its paws hurt. It's keeping that paw nice and close to its body and won't let you get it. That's guarding.
Yeah. The other way to know whether or not you had really a true frozen shoulder is how quickly you start to go through these phases. Because a true adhesive capsulitis / frozen shoulder is really the 3 phases. It really should last around 6 months apiece.
Yeah.
Meaning that the freezing part starts and lasts about 6 months. Then the frozen part starts and lasts about 6 months, and then an additional 6 months for the thawing part. So an 18-month total period. And usually, the goal of therapy, the goal of exercise is to help push those things along and kind of get through those more quickly. So maybe you go from 6 months to 3 months, those types of things on each one. So maybe it's a 9-month process versus an 18-month process. But it's really one of those things that frozen shoulder is truly kind of a long-term type of issue that does resolve itself. In fact, the research will indicate that most people will get 90% or better range of motion back. So there's at the end of the day, whenever you get through that thawing phase, most of the time your range of motion returns at least 90% or better, which is totally functional.
Yeah,
totally functional. So really, there are some options also for treatment for frozen shoulder outside of therapy. They're sometimes in that thawing or that freezing phase when pain is extremely high. They'll do injections.
Yep.
Just
so you have a steroid injection to help reduce with inflammation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They'll also take a look at possibly pain meds, maybe muscle relaxers, things of that nature. And there's some especially how. There's some debate on what's actually going on, whether there's actual physical contractures that's going on in the muscles, where those muscles are...
Yeah, so a contracture is where a muscle is so tight, it literally won't go through the full range of motion.
Yeah, they actually scar down a bit.
Yeah, so you may think that your hamstrings are tight, and they may be tight, but a true... oh my god, I just brain farted on what that was called. Muscle contracture is where.
Good job.
Yeah, thank you. Is where you could not fully straighten your knee.
Yeah. Like the muscle physically just stops at that point.
Yeah.
And so, or whether or not it's actually like a fibrosis that starts to develop in the capsule itself and creates what is considered like a capsular pattern. And so, there is debate on what's actually going on there. They don't quite always know. What's going on there. If it is more like a capsular issue, a lot of times, or sometimes they can actually go through and do like a surgical release too, if it's something that's really problematic, and or a manipulation. So some of the more aggressive treatments are, like I said, injection, manipulation, or a surgical actual intervention.
Yeah, so explain to people what the release would be.
So the release would be is where they do small little ports, small little incisions that would allow the doctor, the surgeon, to take an instrument and go in there and actually break up with a scalpel or an instrument the scar tissue that exists.
And then a manipulation.
Manipulation is when they would actually go under anesthetic.
Yep.
And then the doctor would just basically crank on the shoulder.
Yeah, because you wouldn't be
be
awake to fight
resist it.
Yeah. That one always sounds way worse. You're just like, oh, they're gonna manipulate it. Well, I mean, it's gonna hurt. You'll wake up and it'll hurt. But they're not doing anything surgical.
They're also not
really
cutting into your body.
Yeah, they're not doing anything surgical. They're just
the surgery is actually more aggressive, even though the sound of the manipulation
sounds
is
way worse.
Scarier. Yeah. But truthfully, the outcomes are going to be a little bit better.
Yeah, I was kind of giggle about that.
Yeah. So I think that's always important to note that there are some more aggressive ways to go after this, but usually those are only in the situations where things like the freezing and the thawing, or the freezing and the frozen phases are lasting longer than what they should.
Right.
Yep. Otherwise, the majority of them actually resolve on their own, completely on their own. It's just the fact that it's painful and it's time consuming, and people get extremely frustrated with it. But if we were to be looking at more of a okay, what are we going to do from a conservative standpoint? What are we going to do from a therapy standpoint? The thawing or the freezing phase. So when things are getting worse and the pain is really high, it's really more just about pain management. Ice is typically going to be the best for that. Possibly some NSAIDs, ibuprofen, Tylenol, those types of things, and then gentle range of motion stretches that don't create pain, and then also just gentle strengthening exercises that, again, don't create pain. And really, that's the same process that you'd be doing for your freezing or your frozen phase too, kind of that in-between phase. You're just allowing yourself to get maybe a little bit more aggressive with the strengthening exercises, the range of motion exercises, maybe not pushing your limits, but making sure that you're not losing anymore. And then the last phase is where then you're getting even more aggressive. There's joint mobilizations that you can do from a therapeutic standpoint. You're a lot of times going to be trying to stretch a little bit more aggressively because your pain is less. You can push through your pain a little bit more because you're not going to have that adverse reaction right away. After you stretch really hard, it's not like you may hurt for 20 minutes, but it's not going to hurt for the rest of the day and kind of put a damper on the rest of your day. So you're allowed to get more aggressive with that and start to stretch and really kind of stretch out the whole shoulder and get back to where you need to be. In terms of looking at strengthening and stretching exercises, you're really looking to try to work abduction, going out to the side, external rotation, internal rotation. You can do posterior capsule stretch. Maybe we can put some pictures up.
Yeah, we'll put some. Yeah, because external and internal rotation are kind of like difficult for people to wrap their brains around.
Yeah.
But we can have pictures or videos on.
And there's typically a specific pattern when you have a adhesive capsulitis. You're most limited in your external rotation. You're then limited, secondly, in abduction, so taking the arm out to the side, and then internal rotation, then lastly, just lifting out in front. So there's a very distinct pattern. So external rotation is typically most important.
You never really notice. So internal rotation is if your elbow is bent and you bring your palm to your belly. You never really notice that way, except for like maybe if you're a man and you're reaching back and you're trying to get to your wallet, or putting on like a belt, or if you're a woman, trying to...
The bra strap is a big one. Yeah. So that there's just basically when you're trying to treat this, you're trying to do based upon your pain tolerance. You're just stretching and
trying to get that range of motion
all
back.
within your pain tolerance though. And so when you're in the first phase versus the middle phase versus the last phase, basically because your pain tolerance changes throughout those phases, you're just allowed to get more aggressive with those things. Yeah. That's essentially how you treat it.
Yeah, I would argue even just the strengthening is not overly, and depending if you feel like you're weak, but the biggest thing would just be getting if at home and just getting a pulley and just doing stretches on that.
Yeah, I think there is value to strengthening, not necessarily because of the fact that you're specifically weak, but maybe just to provide like a positive input to the system.
Yeah.
To allow the tissue to maybe kind of be less guarded, that sort of thing. But in terms of
help maybe inhibit the
if you're doing strengthening because you want to get stronger, that's not really the purpose. It would be more to just
inhibit everything and just
give the system a nice positive input. So just a couple other things that I think are probably important to talk about is risk factors. So adhesive capsulitis is much more. Women are much more at risk, specifically between the ages of 40 and 60 who are going through menopause. There's certain kind of reduction in types of blood flow that actually occurs in that age bracket, and then also anybody who's diabetic.
Yep.
I think the statistics is like for general population, it's only something like 4 to 6% actually will have adhesive capsulitis. But if you have diabetes, it could be anywhere from 20 to 60% of individuals with diabetes. So it's a significant increase in risk if you have if you're diabetic.
Diabetes is an awful thing that will affect you in many ways you don't even think is going to be.
Yeah. And then the other thing is if you've had it at one arm, then the likelihood of having it on the other arm is actually significantly higher too. Yeah. So it's just things to think about. But one thing that I would say too is, again, a lot of times adhesive capsulitis can happen in that idiopathic way, meaning that there isn't like a specific injury, but the secondary type of adhesive capsulitis, and something that you should be aware of, is the type of adhesive capsulitis that, it's kind of self-limiting. You have pain at end range of motion, so you don't go into that end range of motion. That slowly starts to hurt, kind of shorten the range of motion, so you move even less, and then it shortens the range of motion even more. And so it's kind of this cyclic pattern. And so if you are having any type of just pain in the shoulder, keep gently trying to push into that pain, as long as it's not creating a lot of residual pain later on in the day. So, you do want to continue to try to maintain what you've got and not be afraid of pushing a little into pain. It shouldn't be hurting, hours, days later, 6-7 hours later, but it should be something that you can continue to work through, so that you don't get that shrinking of the range of motion and essentially that secondary adhesive capsulitis.
Yeah, it's a really fine line to walk.
It is. But, having a little bit of knowledge about it can help you kind of navigate it a little bit, and hopefully that's what we've provided today.
Possibly?
That's optimistic?
I mean, as therapists, we should always be optimistic, right?
Well, in treating people in our podcast, I don't know. That's another question.
Oh yeah, like this actual thing.
Yes,
yeah,
like we're physically working on here to be honest.
No. If we had an actual patient, then that would be completely different.
Yes. I feel good working with patients.
Yeah.
Working with a microphone in front of me, another total other story. Yeah. Anything else? You seen any good movies lately?
No, and I am, as of recording this, Stranger Things came out 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And I'm only episode 2 in of 8 or 6.
There's 8.
Okay.
We will have to chat about it when you're done.
Yeah,
I have watched it, and good things to come.
I'm sure it is, but I'm at the stage where I'm like, yeah, it's teen drama with a monster. Okay, I've seen this like twice. And this girl's got superpowers. Okay, all right. I'm like, it's one of those things where it's like, I'm finding it difficult to not only in the second episode. Or like, I'm like, I don't care.
You're already there?
Wow. I'm sure it'll improve after I start watching it and get a little more into it. But it's in a lot of ways, it seems like it's just a retread. Maybe by the end it isn't, but
it's not. And everybody has kind of their parts in it, which I like. I feel like sometimes in some of these shows, like, a character that starts off in the first, season doesn't have a lot to do in the second one.
Right.
And they all kind of have really nicely defined parts, and all kind of comes together at the end very well.
It's very interesting that how they have naturally made Steve, who was a
bad guy.
I mean, I don't know if he was necessarily a bad guy, but he was like the preppy, the popular guy, and and now he's
straight up nerd.
Oh,
that's getting rejected by chicks. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is very organic in how that happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. So more to come on that.
Yes.
I did watch Us. Did you ever see Us?
No. I've heard mixed things about that one.
It was good. It was a little. It was good. It felt a lot like fan fiction.
Oh, okay.
If that makes any sense, like
from what I've heard about it, yeah,
there's a lot of like I like what they were trying to do, and I think the premise of it's a little far reaching, especially some of the twists at the end. But I like what they were trying to do, but I feel like Jordan Peele just kind of gets a pass for whatever he writes. Like, I don't think if it was someone writing that movie even would have been made, because it does seem a little like fan fiction. I mean, there's moments in the show that are very...
you don't think he's turning into this generation's M. Night Shyamalan? Because he got, he did something great, and then he started doing... what was it? Unbreakable was next?
Yeah, Unbreakable was next. And that wasn't bad.
No.
But then he went and did, I think, The Village. Oh, no, Signs was second. And Signs was good.
Signs was good until you sit there and think about it. The fridge logic on that falls apart toot sweet.
I like Signs.
I like Signs too, but you're still like, you have to accept that these aliens who can traverse interstellar,
Spoiler alert.
yeah, for a movie that's 20 years old or something.
Spoiler
the
alert.
aliens that can traverse interspatial, interstellar distances.
What, are allergic to water?
No. Can't open doors.
Yeah, that's a big one too.
It's
Jump on buildings, but can't
it would
open doors.
it would be one thing if they showed them to be non-humanoid-ish, where they're like,
don't have fingers.
yeah, don't have they're completely alien, but they very much have hands or finger things. That and they decide to go to the planet where it's basically it'd be us traveling to Acid Land, Acid World, and abducting people there.
Yeah. Let's go to a place that's 90% water and that
is
we are
acid to us.
Extremely allergic to.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But then he did. What did he do? The Village.
Village, which was again, it's one of those ones where it's like the suspense part of it is like really good, but then you're like, okay, it just falls apart.
The twist at the end was bad. But then
I think that was his problem. Was he started? I think Lady in the Water.
Lady in the Water, which I don't even think I saw because
I never saw that.
It's
like all of his movies became a
pony.
twist, and it's like you just kind of your brain's already starting to look for the twist.
Yeah,
and like the twist works really good when it's like you do it once or twice or something like that, and you have to surprise the people. But then once you do it every single time, your brain starts looking for the pattern, and then when you especially. It works really well when you can watch it again, and it works really well. Like
to pick up the crumb.
Like Usual Suspects. It's a great movie about like that.
Yeah,
where you can go back and you're like, well, you can question everything, and it works really well with this first one, which was that? Sixth Sense.
Yeah,
because
you can go back and
you actually watch it and you get more out of it.
Yeah,
not so much with. Unbreakable, because there really wasn't really much. The twist was questionable on whether.
Well, yeah,
there really wasn't much of a twist, but then the other ones just start falling apart.
Yeah,
like immediately.
Yeah, but anyways, I think it's worth a watch, but it just, it falls apart at the end.
No.
Yeah. Anyways, that's about all I got.
That's all I got too.
All right,
let's wrap this up. This podcast. Possibly was for educational purposes. Questionable. I mean, somebody might have learned something.
You got to admit, once we started talking about M. Night Shyamalan, everybody turned off this podcast.
Oh yeah, definitively.
Yeah, nobody's listening.
No.
At this point. But let's get this disclaimer in anyway.
Yeah, it's not designed to diagnose or treat. When beginning any exercise program, it should be reviewed and discussed with your medical professional prior to beginning. Information on this podcast is not designed to replace medical treatment. Remember, treat yourself.